Welcome back, Juventinita. I just wanted to thank you guys for all the support, and I just wanted to give you a quick notice that this is going to be a two-part podcast. Obviously, this part is going to be uploaded first, and in the next few days, I'm gonna be able to cut the next section, and it'll all be unedited as usual. But just wanted to split it up to make it a little bit easier for you guys. So. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and I will be putting up the next one in a couple days. So enjoy, guys.
Swagger on point when I step in. Signs in the air for the gang that you're repping. Don't get brave when I'm stepping in the rave. If you show man love, everything's okay. So looking for a lively rave to have fun in. If there ain't girls in the place, we ain't coming. Middle finger up to the Jake, stepping in with the gang. Please tell the police they can't come in. Show me a salute, that's gang. Pure love for the crew, that's gang. Don't chat shit if you ain't gonna bang. Just show man a sign if you're down for the gang. Show me a salute, that's gang. Pure love for the crew, that's gang. Don't chat shit if you ain't gonna bang. Just show man a sign if you're down for the gang. We be on the grind to the morning. Stacking up money in the bank. Don't chat shit if you ain't in the bank. Just show man a sign if you're down for the gang.
Can't fuck with the gang, we don't fucking pretend. We be busting the clubs, cause you know that we can. Can't fuck with the gang, we don't fucking pretend.
Welcome back, Juventini. This is the second Juventinita Back to Black and White podcast. My name is Daniel Negro, and I'm live from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And today we have another great guest on to discuss Juve. So just before I bring him on, it's been great to see all of the amazing feedback and a lot of people watching. And I could just ask for all of you guys, please smash that subscribe button on YouTube. You're going to see the little logo in the bottom right corner. You can also hit that as well. And yeah, just drop any comments, feedback, any questions, any topics you guys want to bring up for the next podcast, next guest. And it really helps me grow. And thankfully, the applications and all the information needed to be inputted for Spotify and iTunes as well as Google Podcasts are finally in. So barring any problems, that should be coming very soon for anyone who needs a more audio friendly version to listen to. I know it's kind of difficult on YouTube, especially if you don't have premium, and who the hell wants to pay for that shit. So anyways, we have today a Juve fan from San Fran. His name's Farrukh, and he goes on Twitter by the handle Forza Piemonte, and yes, Jesse, that's hilarious. You like to bring that up. And also his name is the Juventus Armchair Supporter Group. So Farrukh, welcome. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So what made you come up with the name? Because I love the name. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I was not in the middle of, but I was noticing a lot of Twitter feuds going on, and I was thinking to myself that we have a lot of armchair supporters and supporters who probably may not even they're not some of them maybe have come to Juve after supporting some other clubs, and may have come in there for Ronaldo and things like that. And I thought of it as a name to kind of be ironic and kind of be passive aggressive a little bit.
Yeah, we all like to sit in our armchairs and talk shit, right?
Yeah, and I think partly it was a joke about myself too, because I'm not a season ticket holder or anything. I didn't go to the stadium. I live in some foreign country. I've always lived in some foreign country, and I follow from a distance. So it's kind of a joke on myself too, in a way.
Well, me too, and I like that you're being honest, because a lot of people like to get very protective of their fandom and anyone calling that into question. So, but anyway, just a quick RIP to to the intro song. I know you probably noticed that it's not the same as the last one. Unfortunately, the song was called Juve Juve by Lubiak and Renzo Cochis, sung by the Undici Bianconeri, and it was an iconic inno from the 70s, and I thought it would have been a perfect intro. But unfortunately, I really don't want to have to deal with the Italian Collection Society, and they copyright claimed the first podcast, but it wasn't monetized anyway, so really it doesn't affect me. So it's gonna stay up, and but unfortunately, that'll be the last time that song will be on there. Now so we're just gonna keep up with some copyright-free music, and there's actually quite a few songs that I didn't realize could be used. So that's gonna make up what the majority of the intro music is going to be, and it'll change from time to time. And but on a happy note, there is a Twitter follower and someone that I'm actually talking to that is potentially going to be making an intro for me. So that is in the works, and I'm looking forward to hearing that and hopefully letting you guys listen to it. And that'll be the intro from whenever that comes out. Also, unfortunately, in today's world, I think everyone kind of knows what has happened, and an RIP to George Floyd. It was it was a really unfortunate passing, and you don't like to see things like that happen in life. And it was unfortunate that his life was taken by a police officer. And yeah, just condolences to his family. And I think from what I've seen on social media, there's been a lot of support for him and his family, and just the movement. But one thing I do want to note, though, is the rioting and looting is not the answer. Violence doesn't solve or change anyone's opinion with more violence. So I think if anyone out there is trying to take advantage of the situation and this opportunity, and I think unfortunately they should face the consequences, and hopefully stop as soon as possible, and we can hopefully go try and improve the world and living conditions and the life of many immigrant groups across America and Canada and everywhere. So just wanted to mention that quickly. I don't know if any of your thoughts or if you wanted to mention anything, Farrukh, but it's quite a shocking thing to see.
Yeah, I followed the situation from pretty far away. I have been trying not to get sucked into the news cycle too much for a while now. But, it's not the first time something like this has happened in recent memory, and it probably won't be the last. But, to the extent that there are systemic issues that need to be addressed, I hope they do get addressed due to some of the pressure that's being put. I agree with most of what you said. I don't condone violence or looting or things like that. I mean, I am a big fan of non-violent movements as a way to achieve goals, and as a way to achieve political goals. And I think violence only begets more violence, and it makes things harder for the people who are trying to achieve something. So it kind of backfires. But those are just a few of my thoughts based on what I've seen and been exposed to.
Yeah, and hopefully you're doing okay. And I know obviously you're from, like I said, San Francisco, and a lot of major cities are experiencing a lot of disturbing scenes. So hopefully you and your family are doing all right. And so to go from a kind of somber note to, I think, something that we've all been waiting for, and something that's really exciting to me, and I'm hoping to all of you guys, is finally Fixie was able to stop flip-flopping and actually agree to dates to restart the season. Obviously, they were looking at the potential dates of June 13th and 20th, and kind of everyone was holding their breath because as we all know, the decision making of the FIGC is not is not A1. So a lot of the time, we didn't know if they were going to succumb to the pressure because there was a lot of backlash and a lot of people didn't want the season to be restarted. But they held a meeting and followed up with the announcement, and I'm really happy to report that we are going to be starting the season again. Obviously, Coppa Italia is going to start first on June 13th. Just for anyone who hasn't heard the news or has kind of been out of the loop, I know with the coronavirus still going on, and now obviously the events that were taking place just recently. If anyone was out, so June 13th, Juve is going to play Milan in the semifinals. I'm going to assume that's going to be at the J Stadium. The next day, Napoli will play Merda in the semifinals, and I think everyone knows who that is. And then 3 days later, the Coppa Italia final will be taking place. Again, I don't think anyone knows on the where, but again, all of this is going to be behind closed doors anyway, so not necessarily that it matters. June 20th, big date, match day 25, catch-up round. There's going to be 4 games on tap. And then 3 days later, on June 23rd, we're going to be getting back to the first full round, which is going to be awesome because that's finally going to kick off the. I know UFC's gotten back, various other sports, but now finally Calcio is going to be coming back, and I'm really excited. It's been really boring without being able to watch sports, and then everything goes well, and obviously they've said that if there was any problems, they'd look to other, I guess, formats, maybe a playoff. That's still kind of in their minds, but hopefully everything goes well by August 2nd. 1920 season will end, and then hopefully the Champions League starts. There's been rumors that the August is going to be the Champions League month, and it just sounds like, to me, that's such a great kind of transition. We're going to get all of our seasons done, and then we're going to be able to have like 1 month jam pack of Champions League football. And obviously, I believe there's match day 27 or 26 that's going to be added in somewhere there because there's some teams that need to finishing some games as well. So Farrukh, what do you think of the announcement, and what did you expect? Because obviously the FIGC is very indecisive as of late.
Yeah. To be honest, I did not have any expectations, and I thought that season could really be cancelled, or we could postpone it indefinitely, depending on the situation. And now that hopefully everything is a little bit more safe and under control, I am very excited that we have the opportunity as fans to be able to start watching culture again. And it's been a hard time without having football and without being able to engage with other fans too. Like, as you know, we have some chat groups and communities, and also on Twitter and other social media, and it's been fairly quiet in some ways without all that action to feed us more material to engage with. And I'm glad that that's coming back. I'm glad that the community is going to have a new lease on life with this. And I think it seems like
Cool. Farrukh? Yo, 1 sec. Hello?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I lost you for a second.
Okay. So if you want to just pick it up where you
In the beginning?
left. No, just pick it up where you left off. You were talking about the chat groups not being or coming back and
Yeah.
such.
Yeah, and as you know that we have all these chat groups on WhatsApp and Discord, and obviously we have the Curva Twitter and other social media platforms as well, where Juve fans, Juventini engage with each other. Those have been somewhat quiet for some time now, so it'll be good to see a fresh breath of air on those platforms and for a bit for new material for fans to engage with. And I am particularly excited that we've had a few months of pain in terms of not having footballing action, but we're going to be repaid with that in terms of pretty intense footballing action, like every 3 days or whatever. That sounds really exciting to me. Although I'm sure it's going to be hard on the players, but from a fan perspective, I think it's going to be pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and not to forget, but yeah, I know you were the head of the WhatsApp group, so I'm definitely going to drop that in the description. And if you aren't involved, which I would be shocked because this thing has been passed around, I don't know how many times, but if you're not in the WhatsApp group, I will definitely leave that in the description as well as the Discord group. Which, Farrukh, you're the man in charge. You set this all up and brought us all together. So it's great to see,
Yeah,
and I enjoy taking part in all of these
yeah,
conversations.
yeah. And I would like to kind of give you a little plug here because when I started, it was slow at the beginning, and now these things have taken lives of their own. And I know you're going through your the start of your podcast and building up a following on YouTube, and it takes time and takes a lot of effort, and it is much harder than it looks from the outside. So I wish you the best, and I really hope that anybody listening to this becomes a subscriber and gives you a helping hand in your efforts.
Well, thanks, Farrukh. Really appreciate it. Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. It is a grind, but yeah, no, just gonna be pumping out some content and just having a good time, having fun. But yeah, no, back to the, I guess, decision there. I think what also helped was England and Spain announcing earlier that they would resume, and I think that's a big kind of push for Italy because of the kind of trying to one up everyone. And, if they finish the season and we don't, I think it gives everyone a general push to get it done. Whereas obviously France, Holland, and some other countries completely shut down. So now they're risking of having to play the Champions League without playing any season. Personally, in my opinion, I thought they made a mistake by deciding to shut down that quickly. I know the numbers were very hard to swallow, but I think it was done the right way with everyone shutting down, and I think it was always going to be it's always going to be hard to get back to normal, but just because something's hard doesn't mean you don't go through with it, right? And I mean, there's risk in everything, so why open up the country if you can't, right? Because everything on June 3rd, I believe, or is going to be fully back open. Like the borders will be open and everything. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a hopefully smooth, successful end. And yeah, no, for like you said, for the fans, it's going to be. I think it's going to be incredible. These guys had a couple months off, and hopefully they can get back in shape. And I mean, they're millionaires.
Yep.
I don't feel too sorry for them having to play that much. I mean, especially, I mean, it's a sport you love, right? Like, hey, if I could get paid, sign me up right now, right? So,
Yep.
but then just to bring in the fact that Champions League um, is going to potentially be in August. There was a UEFA spokesperson who came out to say that there was no decision made yet, but there should be one at the executive committee on June 17th for the Champions League and the Europa League. So if anyone hasn't heard in the news, they're talking about moving the final to August 29th and possibly won't take place in Istanbul anymore. I mean, I don't know if you'd want to have it there and lose your chance to make obviously the revenue and the fans coming in. So I think it's just the right put it in the safest place that they can. Some other things of note is to talk about. Obviously, they're gonna try and finish. Oh, they're gonna have to finish the round of 16 fixtures that didn't take place. Obviously, Juve playing Lyon at home was one of them, and then they're even looking to make the quarterfinals and semifinals one leg games at a neutral location, and then obviously the final being a one leg game at obviously another, well, possibly the same or a different neutral location, and obviously no fans. So, what do you think of that? I guess, like you said, is it going to be really strenuous on the team? Do you think we have enough depth, or what do you take of what UEFA's thinking of doing?
Yeah, so the one leg idea is interesting. Historically, Juve hasn't done too well.
Well, at least we don't have Allegri as coach, so that may
right,
be.
that's true. I think maybe Sarri is our X factor here. But I think I don't know if we are better prepared or worse prepared than other top clubs, but I really hope that our team has the right mentality and they are pumped up, and they will do everything that is possible to. They're well rested. They should mentally be sharp, hopefully, and in the right physical and mental condition to really take on this challenge and do everything possible to bring home something big this year.
Yeah, it does seem like it's trending towards that. I mean, some people say, well, do the Germans have an advantage because they've obviously started early, and I believe they're going to be finished a little bit earlier, so are they going to be in shape and also fresh because maybe they'll have a little bit of time before, I can't remember which date they finish on, but I don't know if it's either in the middle of June or at the end of June, but so they might have a month off, and then obviously you look at some of the champions or the championships that have been obviously shut down. Those teams won't be playing at all. So will they be fresh, or will Juve be March ready or April ready, as Allegri used to say? So maybe it'll be the perfect recipe to bring home this damn trophy that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, yeah.
But we can
nobody
hope.
really knows. Nobody really knows. We can argue whichever way, but at the end of it, I'm choosing to stay positive and hoping for the best.
Exactly, man. Well, there's been a lot of controversy on Twitter about this Chiellini autobiography, and yeah, I think we're going to get into that now. Chiellini obviously bringing up his time with the Azzurri and talking about Balotelli, saying he was a negative person. He had no respect for the group, and during the Confed Cup in 2013, which Italy took part in, he wasn't willing to help anyone, he said, and he deserved a punch in the face. He's also commented to say that some people said that he was a top 5 striker, that being Balotelli, but he doesn't see him even in the top 20. Then he goes on to talk about Felipe Melo, who was a teammate in, I believe it was 09, 10, 10, 11, or yeah, 10, 11, and was the worst of the worst. Also, always risked a fight in training. He's made comments about Vidal, saying that he drinks too much. And then Vidal kind of, all of these guys hit back in different ways. But Vidal said, what is said in the dressing room or what is done in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. So, it's kind of crazy that he obviously, at first I thought it was a biography. So I was like, okay, well, maybe someone was writing it was trying to, fish and kind of put a spin on different things to get a reaction. But I actually found out it was an autobiography. So a lot of it, I guess, that he wrote himself. So I guess yeah. What do you think of the backlash? A lot of people are calling him a snake. A lot of people are saying no leader should speak like that, and kind of bringing up the idea that, in sports in general, is there a code in the locker room that's kind of binding? I mean, obviously he didn't release this when he's retired, right? So a lot of the people that some people he talked about obviously were retired, but a lot of them obviously were still playing. Obviously not on the same team, but obviously they're still in the game. So kind of what's your thought on that about, a code and all this kind of backlash that a lot of people were, if you've watched Al's video is recently, a lot of people were even calling into question Buffon and Chiellini as losers, quote unquote, because of this situation. And obviously we'll get into the final next. Kind of that's my sticking point. But yeah, just your opinion on what you've heard and yeah, what your feelings are about that.
Yeah, so that's a really complicated one because I understand people's reactions both ways. I personally have an image of Chiellini in my mind that's been built over a long period of time and not just this book. And I think he's a pretty well thought out and responsible person. And so I like to use that as sort of the base to when it comes to analyze what's gone on with the book. From what I've seen with books, a lot of times it seems to be the case that books kind of play up a bunch of events or sensationalize things, and I'm not sure how much of that is going on here. I mean, with Balotelli, I think he has, Balotelli does give that kind of impression, and
He speaks for himself.
He speaks for himself, right? And I don't know if he has come out and disagreed with what Chiellini has said, but I think that Chiellini has the right to his opinion, and when it comes to Balotelli, for sure. When it comes to Vidal, like they're not playing together. They are. I don't know what their relationship used to be back in the day, but obviously he's not taking it in a positive light at the moment, and it's complicated for me to think about that and to process it. But I think at the end of the day, I tend to go with, I don't want to call it freedom of speech, but he has the right to have his opinion, and he has the right to, state his opinion if he chooses to do so. And he also would realize that there may be or probably will be a backlash if he says things like these. And there has been a backlash. So, I think he is an adult. He made his choice, and he is seeing the consequences, good and bad. And I think that's fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The fact that he says it, and in terms of a code of conduct,
when I played sports, right, there was kind of like this, what happens if someone's acting like, I mean, obviously I haven't played at at the top levels, right? But when you hear about certain things happen where some guy steps out of line, or someone made a mistake or whatever, two guys went at it or whatever, two guys scrapped in practice or whatever the case may be, it's kind of something that you just kind of you let it stay in the room and nothing goes out the door, right? What's said between your brothers, obviously on your team, that's one thing, but you don't let it go out. Obviously my opinion was clear. There's only really one thing that I've found, and obviously I would love to read it. I got to read the whole thing to get the full context, because obviously a lot of this was over Twitter, and people were commenting different segments and kind of the hit pieces and like the fire starters. So obviously for me, I have really no problem with anything that he said about these former players because we already know all of this. So it's nothing new. It just came out of Chiellini's mouth, right? Balotelli has always been a troublemaker, has always not given his 100, and I think that's fair criticism towards him. Felipe Melo, scumbag player. Have no problem with him talking shit to Felipe Melo. I mean, that guy was one of the biggest busts when we were trying to recover from basically purgatory after Calciopoli. And then to comment about Galatasaray, and the guy's just a scumbag. Vidal, it was kind of a hit and miss. Obviously, he wasn't happy about saying he drank too much, but again, that's nothing really new for Juve fans. I mean, obviously, the year before he left, there was a Copa America, and he crashed his Ferrari when he was under the influence. Yeah. So really, it's nothing really that we didn't know. Obviously, we had a lot of the South American players that were always going out and stuff like that. That was known, right? So to me, what he said wasn't anything new. So like I said, I was actually surprised people took it to real heart. Obviously, then there was a lot of trolling as well. Yeah. And you know how it is when something comes out like that. But my only real fault was with him discussing what happened in Cardiff. And essentially he goes on to say that they were exhausted at halftime. Exhausted. We come to a 1-1 draw. They get to the locker room and they're done. Then
he names Pjanic and Mandzukic, I think, specifically there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he says, we're done, we're tired, we're exhausted. They go on to play the second half and essentially says that after the 2-1 goal, which I believe was like a deflection, it was like a horrible goal to go ahead. And he said basically the team was deflated, including himself, and he thought that the game was essentially over. And to me, that is the hardest pill to swallow. I honestly don't believe it. I still think because he's obviously with the club now, he's the captain. He's not gonna spill the beans. I don't think anyone's gonna spill the beans on that event.
Yep.
Till at least everyone retires.
Yep.
And then maybe someone's book will come out, and I can't see it being that Juve had about 20 odd days to prepare for the final. Right. But let's say it did happen. I think all those players deserve the fans who travel out there to cheer for the bunch of bums. If that was the case, like you go into a final and you're exhausted at halftime, tied to the best team in the world. Yeah, it's really hard to believe, and I can't believe that if that was the case, Agnelli as a president, who supposedly runs this club like a business now and like a brand, would keep Allegri knowing that this mentality was shot in the dressing room. It just makes me sick to even think that was and then a whole bunch of people were bringing up, Chiellini saying it's history of when we beat Tottenham when we came back, and how they can never do anything, and it was a real spark to because that kind of came out a little bit after the first. Obviously, I believe Balotelli and Chiellini talked it and they reconciled. I mean, that's someone posted on Twitter. Who knows if that's actually real? But yeah. So, and obviously Vidal kind of said that there was a lot in the book that he said great things about Vidal, but he was kind of more of towards that alcoholic part. And then this came out a little bit later, and people were just furious, and understandably so. I mean, you'd have a team that's given their all, and that was the same year that we beat Barcelona 3-0 and basically dismantled them. And you're telling me that a team that gets 1-1 at halftime is exhausted and just dies, and Allegri can't say anything to motivate these guys, and you're in a final? I don't know. It's tough to believe that, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
As
yeah,
much as I have respect for Chiellini, someone just come out and say what happened. Like, cut the
yeah.
BS with all this.
I agree with you for um, pretty much the whole analysis that you gave. I mean, you know, I think so. If you had to say that Chiellini is a good person, then your interpretation would be that Chiellini did not talk about dressing room stuff in a bad manner. He actually tried to protect his teammates
Exactly.
about Cardiff, and he talked about drinking problems and Balotelli, and which are kind of non-dressing room related issues for the most part. And so, therefore, he is actually being responsible in what he said. So there's that kind of view that argument that you can make. But when it comes to the Cardiff final specifically, um, yeah, I mean, I think it just is really hard to say things like, "Oh, we had a big bust up, and so is to blame,"
Yeah.
and take sides in that conflict and name specific players. And what if there were multiple people who were responsible on if it's not one side is right and one side is wrong, but everybody was wrong, kind of thing. Everybody got
And they're all
involved,
still there, right?
and they're all, or a lot of them are
Or a
still there.
lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, and or maybe the answer is that we were not good enough, and you know, how do you communicate that to the fans and supporters? So I think it's quite possible that he's being diplomatic with that
Yeah.
answer, and maybe when he's 20 years older, then he'll come up with a real version of what happened. But I guess we're not going to hear it quite yet.
No, exactly. See, just Farrukh, it's so difficult for me to believe that we weren't good enough. Just the way we were playing in the first half.
Yeah,
And then to go into the dressing room 1-1, and I mean you have three subs at the point. Obviously, Cuadrado gets sent off later on, but it just to me it just seems too coincidental that it was like, oh yeah, we were just all exhausted, we were all dead, we weren't prepared
yeah,
for this. It was another final, and we're always too late when it comes to finals. Just not a great and. Like I said, he's going to take the heat for it. He has taken the heat for it now, but yeah, that turns into another thing. So then I start reading on Twitter, Dybala's in line to be the next captain, and I'm like, did they strip Chiellini or something like that?
yeah,
I came in at the wrong moment, and no, that isn't the case. It was just a conversation, and I'm actually really happy to hear that Dybala looking to sign his extension, which seems to be taking forever. I don't know what they're waiting. It took like a week to sign Kadir's extension, but when it's Dybala, we have to take over a year and a half. But anyways, he is geared up to be, or is in line to be the next captain of Juventus, and I think it's really great to see someone who has really shown his mental fortitude and has come out and really played. I mean, he's been the catalyst, I think, of this whole year. I think he's been our best player this whole year. And you can really see in the key moments when he comes on, there's an injection of not just fire, but like really wanting will to win. So I agree fully with the club and wanting to make him the next captain. And I mean, people were going on about him being mentally weak. It was a big topic last year, but I think it was just no one had an actual legitimate fault against the ball, and they were just trying to come up with something. And that was, you heard it on all these podcasts. Oh, he's not mentally strong, and then he'll have like an amazing game, and then you don't hear about it again. It's like you don't turn the switch on and off in like 2 games. There was clearly something with Allegri, but obviously we don't have to worry about that anymore. But what are your thoughts on Dybala possibly being the next captain?
yeah. I think Dybala is. I have stayed out of pro Dybala and anti Dybala camp for the most part. I've kind of stood on the sidelines, sorry, and viewed it from there and been neutral to it. I think there's no doubt this year he's done really well, and he has showed his desire to stay at the club. I mean, his mannerisms do remind me of Del Piero a little bit, to be honest, because Del Piero was also the kind of shy, quiet kind of guy, like a silent leader. And Dybala is that kind of, also besides having the number 10, they have some similarities there.
And they have a pretty strong connection. If you've been following on social media, they've done some Instagram lives, and it's really nice to see. And it really seems like he wants to be there. And unfortunately, we had to experience what happened last summer. But it's crazy.
Yeah, so I think it seems to be a good fit, and I'm glad it's working out for him and for Juve. After all that happened over the last summer, I think things are going in a good direction.
Yeah, for sure. And I think some really big talking points now is, speaking about last summer, is obviously the potential transfer of Dybala, but hopefully we won't have to see that. Obviously, there has been multiple rumors. I mean, everybody's in the works for a deal. Everyone's bored. Everyone's throwing ideas out there. It seems like every day there's about 50 different transfer headlines, and from every news outlet in the game. Yeah. So it's really strange to see how many different. Obviously, like I said, I think a lot of people are bored and trying to come up with stuff, but I don't see Juve being incredibly active. Just looking at our financial situation, it's going to be tough, right? Yeah. So, and honestly, I've always said, I hate transfer markets. I can't stand transfer seasons. It's literally just went from going from Pogba to not leaving, and then he did leave. It just, after that year, it just ruined me. So it's and we really have no idea what is going to happen with this transfer season, because everything's been pushed back, right? So the new season's going to start obviously September 1st is what they've been saying. They want everyone to be done by obviously the 1st. And so the Champions League final is apparently going to be on the 29th of August. So in my honest opinion, I think it's going to be kind of a shortened window anyways. And it's going to be something where it's going to be possibly in August to end of September or October, but obviously, if it's in August, you can't bring anyone into your squad, because that would kind of, I'd hope they'd do that, but you'd think they'd be smart enough to say that, but or else teams will just be buying just to bring in recruits for semis and the final. But we obviously don't know, and obviously that's a UEFA and FIFA decision to see what's going to happen. But I don't see much meaning. I don't see much meaning to. I think it's going to be a lot of swap deals, because the money really just isn't there. And if you look at the half-season financials, we are down 50 million in the whole overall. So it's going to be tough, right? It's going to be tough. What do you think about kind of the action that will obviously take place?
Yeah,
that everyone's hyping on.
I'm kind of curious if UEFA will allow clubs to have some kind of leeway with FFP, in the sense that they may allow Agnelli, for example, or Exor to put in some cash into the club.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, if something like that happens, then that could be interesting, in the sense that Juve is one of the clubs that has a strong backing, but then that also benefits other clubs like PSG. So it's gonna, it's a dual-edged sword.
Well, and recently today they've signed Icardi, 50 million euros plus 8 million bonus. Obviously a non-Italian clause, or basically a clause that they would have to pay, I believe it's 12 or 15 million euros to Inter if they sell them to any other Italian club. And obviously they've bought Telles for 25 million. I'm not sure how those are structured, if they're pay over 4 year or what the financing is on them. But yeah, big moves from PSG already. And what, Tellus was a player sought out, I think, by a lot of Juventini wanted him because he's a capable fullback, and that's what we're looking for. And 25 million is not a steep price, and even 50 million for Icardi is not really a steep price. They're saying he was going for 100 million. They wanted 100 million, so. But it seems though Juve is always late to the party, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of wonder about what is going on in management's head, because on the surface, at least, Agnelli is connected like nobody else, right? He's the head of the chairman of the ECA, European Club Association, and he regularly meets with the CEOs and chairmen or whatever of the top clubs in Europe. So he knows what's going on, and he has kind of a lot of insider knowledge in terms of what the UEFA is going to do, what's going to happen with FFP, and also the market and how Juve should move in the market based on all that stuff. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen, given that PSG is making these big moves, if that means that there is some leeway on FFP, because you think that PSG has been having a hard time financially too. I haven't looked at their financials, but I'm sure they're feeling the pain with their budget and all that stuff.
Well, they know how to finagle their financials.
Right. they have good accountants, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's. I think overall, I'm still, like I said before, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'm kind of optimistic about the situation. I think there are scenarios where things could work out well for Juve, in sort of the aftermath of coronavirus.
Yeah, and I think clubs are going to be more open to this kind of swap deal mentality or kind of system now, because I think a lot of clubs are all in the same boat. They're not getting in that revenue that they need. But like you said, again, we don't know what is going to happen, and we don't know what they're communicating with the clubs about what they could do. And obviously, the market isn't open yet, right? So this is all kind of future speculation. And but it has been reported, obviously, that Juve won't be spending, I believe, anywhere. They obviously have. It's going to be more than 8 million. They're looking for contracts below that. Obviously, we've discussed on the last podcast the use of the salary cap that they're going to be imposed. But there's been a lot of names out there, so I think what we should do next is kind of go through a list of a bunch of them and kind of drop our opinions on what we think. And I know that the first one is going to be a pretty common name. I think everyone's going to know this. Everyone's got their opinion, but Artur from Barcelona. So for me, this guy didn't want to come. He said multiple times, it's been reported multiple times, he wants to stay with Barcelona. It seems like they want to get rid of him. And a player who isn't wanted by the club and he doesn't want to sign there is not a good combination. And I don't think giving up Pjanic for what PSG, and like I said, I had said multiple times, we're looking at 60, 70, 80 million last year, to now give him up for a guy who, he's young, he has some potential, but really he didn't want to come here. So, and it's been such a commotion. Obviously, again, transfer season hasn't started, but for someone to not come out and say and deny that, or to come out and say, actually I would like to play there and whatnot, to me, I would not go ahead with that. What do you think of all the dramatics around Artur?
Yeah. So I absolutely do not want a player who does not want to come to Juve. I think that's how the club has operated in the past, and I think they should continue doing that. It's just, we shouldn't want players who aren't hungry to play for Juve or don't have the respect for the shirt or whatever you want to call it. we have two problems, right? On the one hand, that Arthur doesn't want to come to Juve. On the other hand, Pjanic does not want to stay at Juve. So that that's kind of a
Yeah.
double whammy that
Well, and
we're faced with.
Barcelona really wants him. From what I've
Yeah,
heard, they're really pushing hard because the next couple players I have on my list, Dembele has been linked, obviously, as a potential replacement in the deal for Arthur, as well as, and then Frankie De Jong has also been talked about, but that's been
yeah,
heavily disputed. I'm not sure I'd want De Jong. I know we got Matthias de Ligt, who's an amazing piece that we picked up. I think he's not I think he's a system player, and he fits that mold that Ajax and Barcelona have. But
hmm
I don't think he's a Juve player. So I
hmm
mean, to get a young player would be nice, obviously, because we seem to only pick up guys that are aging.
yeah,
But yeah, and then I believe Ansu Fati as well has been linked. But I'm just really not liking this whole situation. I would almost just keep Pjanic if until everything is kind of sorted. Maybe wait till this new window opens and see what happens then, because I'm just not liking what teams are wanting. I also Chelsea has been pushing possibly for Jorginho Pjanic
hmm
swap. They've stated that they value Jorginho at 40 million euros, and Sadi seems to really like the idea. I think it would be good for him. I don't know if I'd want to give up someone like Pjanic for Jorginho, just because I think he holds his value, even though Pjanic really hasn't showcased well well, obviously the season that's now been prolonged, but I still think that I would like to bring Jorginho, but not at an extensive price. But I think he does fit the system, right? He knows how Saudi
yeah,
wants to play. He's been with him at obviously Napoli and Chelsea, so that would kind of be, I think, a decent pickup. You got it's. I find a lot of fans, we think about, oh, but yeah, but he's not a great player, or we like to throw that around when you kind of need to find players that are going to work in the system that you have, right? So
hmm
to me, I wouldn't mind that as a. What do you think of Jorginho as a pickup in the midfield?
yeah. So I'll kind of roll it back and kind of go through all the options if that's okay.
Yeah, no
All the
problem, man.
options that
Go
you
ahead.
mentioned. So I think Pjanic, I've personally been a fan of him, and I've also seen him struggle, but I've also realized that, or at least told myself that part of his struggles were the fact that he barely got any rest, and that he was exhausted for a lot of the games, and he's not a very physical player. So, with those two attributes or those two factors combined, it has been hard for him to be effective recently, before the season was postponed. But I think he is a very capable player, and he has potential. I mean, there's a reason why Barcelona and PSG and Chelsea want him, like top clubs around Europe want
Exactly.
him. It's not because he's not a good player or a great player. Um, and But since he doesn't seem to want to stay at Juve, I think, given Juve's sort of tradition, if you want, of allowing the players will, um, I
I hate that line. I
yeah, I know.
really hate that line.
It's a loaded term. It's a loaded term.
Because it
But
doesn't work. Because it doesn't work when it's the will of the player until they have you locked like Kadira on a $6 million, 6 million euro contract for 3 more years, and then the
right,
will of the club means shit to the player. He's just gonna sit on that contract, but
right,
when it's will of the player leaving, they always get the proof. But
right.
anyways,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
my 2 cents on that. Oh, I can't stand that line.
yeah. I mean, so philosophically, I would think that if Pjanic is bitter about staying at Juve, he's not going to do well. That's kind of the
Yeah,
argument that I have in my head, that he's not going to
But I'm not sure if it's that strong of him not wanting to stay. I think there's been a lot of rumors, and that's kind of driven it. I'm not sure if like he hasn't necessarily come out and said that he wants to leave or anything like that. So I think it's kind of
Yeah.
all speculative. But I get what you're
Sure.
saying, and yeah, if he doesn't want to play, I agree.
Yeah, I mean it's rumors for sure.
But
And that's kind of
usually always handcuffs us. That's kind of what I get to. It's when someone
yeah.
comes out and says that, it's like, oh well, we're handcuffed. There goes 20 million off the price.
Right, right. Yeah, and I want us to do a good deal if we do sell. That'll be my number one priority. Like I don't want us to be taken advantage of, and hopefully it doesn't come to that. So the Barcelona players, I think I would personally, I could see the case against it too, but I would personally exchange him or get some money in addition for Frankie de Jong. The reason being, number one, he's younger, he's adaptable, he can play all over the park pretty much. And even though he's a system player, like you mentioned, I think he could be a fit with Sarri's system in terms of what he was trying to do with one-touch passing and all that stuff.
True.
So I could see a case for him, and I think with him and Bentancur together, we could have a really strong midfield partnership.
So who would you put with that? So you'd put De Jong, Bentancur as like a regista,
yeah,
and then
Bentancur would be.
who's the other player? Rabiot or Ramsey, or you see him leaving, or
I think Ramsey would probably be it, but Rabiot, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the idea of dark horses, and everybody says crap about Rabiot all day long, and I don't know. Maybe there's a twist in the tail, or maybe there's not. I just don't know. But I've talked to people who've seen him play at PSG and who swear he was a really, really good player. So
yeah,
how much of that is mental?
it's
Just
the money. It's the money.
yeah, is the money? Is he depressed? Like what's going on?
Oh, when you play for a club like PSG, right, and then you're getting paid this salary, and obviously we got him for free, and
Yeah,
obviously he didn't want to play, right? He was holding out
right.
at PSG because his contract demands weren't getting taken care of, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had to pay all this money, like 7.5 million, and I believe there's a 2 million bonus on that as well. So it could be out as high as 9.5 million. So that's a lot of money. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
and there is interest. So, but we'll get into that in a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
We
So
have
just
some. Oh, go ahead, man. Continue on.
yeah. So just to kind of wrap this up quickly, Dembele, the few times I have seen him, I've been impressed. Like he's a pretty exciting player, and he's sort of another. I think he's a real dark horse, somebody who could really explode. I don't think it's happening for him at Barcelona, but I think at a different club he could do really well in a different system. He has a lot of skill and pace, and I think he's a pretty exciting player, but very different to Pjanic. So we'll have to figure out, who's going to move where if we try to do a Dembele deal. Ansu Fati, I've only heard the hype. I don't know a lot about him. I just know from Barcelona fans that they were really excited about him. But he's young, so I would hope that we get some money if he ends up being the option. But
Yeah.
it's kind of an unknown at this point.
I think they're trying to dump a lot of players that they don't like anymore, honestly.
Yeah.
Is what they're
Yeah.
doing, that they've come out of favor. They're really, obviously they want to get a player like Pjanic, right? But
Well,
yeah,
they want to sign Neymar too, apparently still. So
yeah. So
that kind of
they're trying to build up those dollar figures so that they can pose a deal, and yeah, who knows? There could be some movement if that's the case, because PSG's also been linked with Ronaldo
right,
recently. But
right.
we've been hearing that for a couple of years now. Even when we signed him after his first season, there was heavy talks throughout the whole year that he was going to leave. But no, kind of the
Yeah.
biggest name I think we should get into, kind of how you think Paul
Oh,
Pogba.
Oh yeah, Pogba. Actually, before that, talk about Jorginho quickly, but with Jorginho, I think it fits into Sarri's system. He has worked with Sarri's before. He's like, he's like a Sarri's son, so to speak. But at the same time, he's never really excited me as a player. And, there's something to be said about, when a player comes to your team and there's genuine excitement and a buzz around the club. I think there's something to be said about that. It's not the end all and be all, but
Right.
I think that's something that Pogba would bring. But I think Pogba at this point, I wonder if his head is in the right place.
See, I'm not worried about that. I don't think financially it's going to work at all.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
don't get me wrong. I would love to have Pogba back. I mean, that would be tremendous. I mean, that's a big ad. Player who's won the World Cup, a player that knows the club, and just has played some phenomenal years under us. But yeah, no, I just financially I don't see it happening. Not now, unless there is some clause that, like you said, allows for a cash injection or something. But I really don't see it happening because a lot of the players that we're giving up, I don't think they're rated, which is what usually happens to us. All of the players we're trying to sell aren't rated, and all the ones we're trying to buy are 90 to 100 million.
Right, exactly.
But even De
Exactly.
Bruyne, there was at the beginning there, kind of when talks about coming back were flourishing. De Bruyne was named, that he had talked into an interview, and he was in an interview saying that he would like to win the Champions League, obviously with Ronaldo, and that would be something interesting of him. So, but again, I mean, I talked to them in Las Vegas, and the deal's almost signed. But
Right.
I did meet him in Vegas. That was pretty cool. But
Oh, nice. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see that happening either. Even though he's a
Yeah.
great player.
Yeah. With Pogba, I mean, I don't know. Another thing, I don't know if he's good value for money, even if we
True.
were to be able to get him. Although you could argue that his contract is winding down, and Man U will eventually be forced to, you know, bring the value down to try to get
I
something
think
back.
he would work a deal. I think he would work a deal for us if that was the case. If all the news reports are correct in saying he wants to come to Juve, he wants to come to Juve, I think he would definitely work it in our favor. I believe,
Yeah.
in my personal.
Yeah. Right. But I don't know if he, um, like how he would fit into the current midfield, because who's going to be doing the work for him? Because Pogba needs to have players around him who do the work for him to be successful. Like he, is athletic and everything, but he doesn't have the highest work rate out there. So that would be one of my other things. And with all his focus seems to be on sort of the financial side of things and marketing and stuff like that. Um, I don't know if he's like Ronaldo in the sense that he also keeps his game at the highest level.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of kind of blame to go around on the Manchester United management and how the squad has been structured and all that. But what part has Pogba played in things not going right there? That's it's an open question. I'm not saying he's culpable for everything or most of it, but there's some role that he did play in that.
Well, and something to say too is that he's not going to have Pirlo, he's not going to have Vidal, and he's not going to have
Exactly.
Marquisio, right? So
Hmm.
that does change things, right? It's not
Yeah.
not saying that he was ineffective or he was a horrible player or that they were lifting up his talents, but that definitely changes things. I mean, who you can
Yeah.
rely on next to you and how far when you have someone that is capable of winning the ball back or someone who's as gifted as Pirlo was to
Yeah.
put the ball to you or to make the right decisions, to make the right passes, where then you are allowed to move forward up the pitch and make
Yeah.
whatever decisions you want and be able to shoot on goal and make some incredible finishes. You're allowed to do that because of some of the players. Does Juve have those players now? I don't think so. So, I mean, don't get me. I think it would be incredible ad, but yeah, for me, it's more of a financial thing. It just doesn't. It doesn't sit with me being. And I mean, who knows? Maybe Paratici will be able to strike a deal, but I don't see it.
Yeah, Man U are tough to work with, so
That's
they're
another thing too. Yeah,
they're
exactly.
not easy. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some Italian players. So obviously the youngsters have been mentioned quite a bit. Tonali, Zaniolo. I think those two players alone would make a perfect signing season. Transfer market if we were able to bring those two in. Obviously, Tonali now has been heavily linked with Inter,
Hmm.
with Merda, and
Yeah.
apparently there's an agreement between the club and the player. Now, a lot of people are speculating that that Merda's using the money from the Icardi deal to obviously pay for the deal for Tonali. So again, just seems like we keep missing on players. And then Zaniolo, I mean, I think a lot of people are questioning his fitness after his, I believe it was an ACL tear.
Hmm.
But I think, in today's medical world, I'm no doctor, but there's been various advances in the length of the treatment and how the amount of time it takes to recover. And I don't know if you know of Connor McDavid's hockey player. He he came back in like record time after having the same injury. So I don't, and it doesn't seem like he's phased at all. So stronger player back to, and who's one of the top players in the league. So, but to me, those are the top two players that I would love to see in a Juve jersey. It brings in the Italian kind of mid that we've been looking for, and they're young players, and you know, you need to be developing young players and relying on young players. I think that's one of the faults that Juve has is not relying on youth and not bringing in the right guys to fill the role. So, but anyways, on those two players, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Tonali is interesting because um, he's had a good first season in the upper flight, and at the same time, he is also very highly hyped. So it's hard to have an accurate read on him almost, just because there's so much hype surrounding him.
Right.
Um, but I think I think it's up to the management to decide if they want to, right? Like if Pjanic leaves, for example, if they want Bentancur to take that role, if they really believe in him, or if they want a Tonali in there. And I think it's a tough decision. So
Yeah,
that's one factor. Yeah.
it is tough. And then Verratti's been coming, has his name has kind of been in the news with PSG again. Something to look at with Pjanic, I would assume. And it's a tough player to judge because you've seen him take his anger out with the national team a lot and get a lot of
Right.
red cards and make stupid decisions. But then you've also watched games where he's played unbelievable. So
Right.
and again, another Italian player hurt uh, wouldn't hurt the club. I think it's a great pickup, but again, depending on the terms of that, I think it would be interesting. And then Chiesa has been. I guess there was a rumor that had recently come out about Perin, Mandragora, and Romero, all for Chiesa. So that's kind of what's been put out there. I think that's kind of a lot, kind of a stretch to ask for all
Yeah.
those players, but
Right.
yeah. And then just rolling off a couple more. I mean, Tagliafico's been mentioned. I think he's a great fullback that we could use depending on what happens depending on if De leaves or not, or I mean, some people are wanting Alexandro to leave. I don't think it's the right time, just because of all the this coronavirus has kind of changed the landscape, right? So I think you can't. I wouldn't really play with getting rid of someone that you're looking at not necessarily replacing with the same price. I'm not sure how much they want for Tagliafico, but if you look at the fullback from Lyon, his name is Aouar.
Hmm.
They're listing him at 50 million. So really, we're looking at big bucks to replace someone like Alexandro. So I don't see I don't see any way he goes. Even though he doesn't necessarily bring us an offensive edge, I think it's not necessarily a great time to be looking to get rid of fullbacks. I find it's really tough to replace fullbacks. So when you have decent to great fullbacks, you have to keep them and all, even if they've had a tough season. But again, he was probably another guy that was ran into the ground by Saudi.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you got to look at that too, right? So.
Yeah, I just wish that it's kind of hard to do it with Ronaldo, but I wish that Alexandro had more room to go forward and deliver crosses because he's kind of
Yeah.
lost his confidence in doing that. But he used to be able to be really amazing with that.
Oh yeah, the comeback against Real Madrid. It was him and who was that? Oh my God, who was on the right? Anyways, yeah. So that's pretty much it for the names. I mean, obviously we're gonna be hearing a lot more. But some of the names on Tutto Sport listed some potential players that have been put on the market. A lot of these, I think everyone's going to know. Higuain, to name one. Obviously, Pjanic, Rugani, Rabiot, De Sciglio, Pellegrini, Romero, Mandragora, Piazza, and Mavididi. So, no Khedira on there, no Bernardeschi on there, no Ramsey on there, and no Douglas Costa on there. So, what are your thoughts on that kind of leak or news, if you want to call it that, of who Juve's listing? Kind of makes sense. Straightforward, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I would say so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to get rid of Khedira. I think that's one, and even Matuidi. I think those are
Yeah,
guys that you're just holding on to and not extending them, and then letting their contract expire and get rid of that contract. So,
yeah.
but
I mean,
yeah, go ahead, Farrukh.
I was just gonna say that's the only way that we kind of have this Juve fans delude ourselves by thinking that, oh, we have these really terrible players. Look at how bad Bernardeschi is. Look at how bad Khedira is. Look at how bad De Sciglio is. And what we can make 20 million each of them or whatever. Like we make up a number, and we think that somebody's out there who's crazy, who's going to come and buy these players that we think suck, and nobody else realizes they suck. So I always find that interesting that we have
Yeah,
this
it's not
wishful thinking
happening.
going on. Yeah.
You gotta start praising them, and then maybe it'll work.
Right, right.
Reverse
Yeah,
psychology.
we gotta showcase them. We gotta have Khedira score a couple of goals, and
Well,
then
I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, I think if the community started praising Kadira and maybe even like he's the GOAT or something like that, get a campaign going, because we know Juve likes to do stupid campaigns on their social media. So if we get something like that going, maybe we'll get like we'll find an Arsenal or some English Prem club that will be stupid enough to buy him. But I guess that's a little wishful thinking. Eh?
well, Arsenal can have Mesut Ozil and Khedira together, right?
Yeah, exactly,
They still have
exactly.
Ozil, I think. Yeah.
So kind of to wrap this up, who are two players that you really want to bring in? And, I guess you could think about it reasonably, but, maybe two players reasonably that we'd bring in and kind of like your pick that you probably don't think is going to happen, but you would really like to have on the club. Farrukh?
Yep, I'm back.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, who can we bring in reasonably and who can we
Okay,
bring in
perfect.
sort of aspirationally? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So reasonably speaking, um, out of all the players we've talked about, I would like Frankie de Jong the most.
Okay.
And I think for that, it'll have to be a swap deal for Pjanic. And among the Italian players, that's a little tough for me because I guess if I had to forecast the future and say that Zaniolo is going to be fit from now on, I think he could be a good pick for us. So those would be a couple of players that I think we could get reasonably.
Yeah.
Tonali, I would say, just because I am kind of allied to Bentancur at this point too much.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit of FC Bentancur. And aspirationally, that is a really tough question, right? Because, I mean, you can obviously say I want Messi and Neymar, but that
Yeah,
doesn't sound like the right answer.
Anyone else?
But I think Lewandowski would be really amazing, even though he's a little bit older. But
Okay.
as far as strikers go, I don't think you can do better than that.
Marchin would like to hear that. He would like
Oh,
to hear
yeah.
that a lot. Yeah.
Does he like him or?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
He's Polish. Come on, they have to like him.
I was guessing that would work in the right direction, but you
Yeah.
never know if there could be bad blood among the same culture or whatever.
But yeah, I think that
Yeah,
makes sense. I think that's a good pick. I think we've always kind of had links to Lewandowski. Never really pulled the trigger, but yeah, I kind of agree. I think Tonali and Zaniolo are kind of the perfect players we would need. Zaniolo is more of like a guy that can be moved around. He doesn't necessarily need to be he can be a central attacking mid, central mid. And I don't think that affects really Bentancur because he's kind of he's done a really good job with the regista role, right? So I think
yeah,
that doesn't change anything. And then you have a guy like Tonali who can go either beside him,
yeah,
and you kind of have two really talented players. And I think that's kind of what Juve's been lacking in the midfield because when we play teams, they can lock onto Pjanic, and we're
yep,
screwed.
yep.
So in the past, we've had Pogba, Marquisio, Pirlo, Vidal, and those are really talented players, and they're very hard to stop because they can all move the ball. And I think that's what we got away from. And I think if you add those two players in the next window, I think we're set for a really long time of successful football. Whereas if we're really looking to anywhere like, I mean, I know a lot of guys are looking to reinforce the attack, and a lot of guys are looking for fullbacks and stuff like that. I just think in terms of those, there's a lot of players down the line that I think we can invest in that we don't know about yet. And that's kind of the thing that I mentioned with Haaland. And sure, he's a fantastic player, made me my words, but at the end of the day, there are players coming out of the woodwork yearly now. It seems like. So I think a lot of the time we get a little too specific and not look at the big picture. And I mean,
Yep.
Juve's been dodging the midfield question for 5 years, and then they tried to patch it up with a quick fix, two free signings, Rabiot
Yep.
and Ramsey, and then you're overpaying guys that you're not really 100% sure on. And I don't think they played awful, but they really haven't showcased anything spectacular, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of not a waste to ask the question, but I think we kind of know who's going to be heading out potentially. I think Pjanic is probably most likely going to go, and then any one of the younger players. I think what we do is we get anyone essentially who's going to give us a positive plus Valenza is going to has a chance of going, because that's what Juve does, and it pisses me off because you look at a guy like Luca Pellegrini who could have really helped us this year, and Leonardo Spinazzola and Moise Kean. I find that we make really bad decisions, or we make marginally bad, like depending on who we're talking about, but we make bad decisions, and we have to make up for them by getting rid of players that we picked up at cheaper prices to inflate their price, and that's how we balance our books essentially. Instead of doing the right thing and building the right way, we get forced into this, and that kind of is, it's kind of annoying when you see players that you think are up for it, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we'll just kind of throw something together and hopefully it works, because we need to balance the books, and because we did a horrible job finding guys, and we have guys that are overpaid. Now we have to throw that out the window, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're not the only club that's in that situation,
Right.
but it is a reality with FFP, and FFP is not really there to make things fair for clubs. It's there to
Even the playing
to
field.
make sure that that clubs are sustainable, right? That clubs have
Yeah, exactly.
the revenues and expenditures are in line with each other reasonably. But at the same time, it makes things hard for clubs like us who are trying to grow, or trying to sort of, because it's kind of like the chicken or egg problem.
Mm-hmm.
How do you grow revenue without growing expenses? And it's very risky to try to grow grow revenue without really doing much to the
Increasing your
expenses
costs.
and increasing your costs. And that's kind of the road we've taken, and it's kind of hard to tell at this point how it's going to play out. But I think we're maybe getting some kind of a lucky break with coronavirus, because we're in a place where those rules will not be implemented as heavily or as strictly as they were in the past. And I don't know what the eventual, the updated rules are going to look like in the next year or two. But I'm betting that Agnelli will be arguing for some kind of a leeway that would benefit Juve, and that would be appropriate to Juve circumstances.
Yeah, and I think actually that works to be the perfect segue, because I had asked Al last podcast about did we kind of catch a break with this coronavirus, and does in terms of obviously the state of the club, the management, and obviously our financials. And I think as a club we really need to kind of stop and think, almost use this time. And I mean, I don't know if they'll leave it. Like I said, they probably don't care a lot what the fans have to say, and that's fine. They run the club. But I think this needs to be an opportunity for the club to really think about how we move on, and how we use Ronaldo in a way that we're also building, but we're also financially in a good place. Because I think you can, from what the direction has been, obviously using their financial statements, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing their financial statement in June, or whenever whenever that's posted. But and will probably be another episode on this podcast. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And sometimes I ask, do you are we headed in the right direction? It seemed like we were going so exponentially. We were climbing, right? We were hitting Scudettos. We were hitting Coppa Italia's doubles. Then we go to the final. Okay, we lose. To me, it just seems like in these last few years, we've kind of hit a plateau after Cardiff. And it's almost a little bit like we're spiraling a little bit because the financials are a little bit getting out of hand. You know, the club is diluting shares, which means that they're essentially putting more shares out there in the market, basically meaning that your value, well, what you own as in a share is less than what it was before they had done that. And trying to raise money that way also with the bonds, which again isn't free money because we have to pay interest on that, and that's taken every year. And then obviously it's going to mature. I can't remember what year it was, but it will mature eventually.